from the chair. Hi, I'm Patrice Robinson, your Memphis City Council Chairwoman. A View from the Chair is a show designed to bring you the very latest information about everything Memphis city government, as well as the city council, and how your city council works every day to ensure a safe, livable, and walkable city. So stick around. We'll be back with my guest today, Steve Barlow, president of the Neighborhood Preservation Incorporated, here on the Kazukian Network. A View from the Chair on the Kazukian Network.
Our experience with Kazukian has been amazing. They are creative, innovative, flexible, work really hard, and they find the answer to every problem we put in front of them, every challenge we offer. We couldn't have better partners than Kazukian.
We're back with A View from the Chair, and I'm your host, Council Chair Patrice Robinson. And as promised, my good friend Steve Barlow with Neighborhood Preservation, Inc. is in the building. Steve, welcome to A View from the Chair.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I am so happy that you chose to be with us today. Tell us about what you just got through doing.
Oh, I came from a neighborhood cleanup on Mansfield in the Klondike Smoky City neighborhood. There's a group of people who were working with Clean Memphis and some neighborhood volunteers and some residents. The best part for me was that there was a big cookout going on the corner.
Oh, wow. What did they have?
Well, today it was hot dogs and hamburgers, smoked to perfection. But there was a lot of sidewalk and gutter cleanup and litter pickup and a lot of just general, neighborhood pitching in, volunteering going on.
So that is so important that our community work together to preserve our own neighborhoods and the city of Memphis. So, Steve, while you're here, will you share with our listeners a little something about yourself and how did you come to do this hard work? H-E-A-R-T work, not H-A-R-D.
Well, maybe both. But the story that I like to talk about is, I came from Jackson, Tennessee, which is when I was growing up there, it was kind of a small town, not really an urban environment or anything. And I went to college in Chicago, Illinois at Moody Bible Institute. And while I was there, I lived on the corner of Chicago and LaSalle, which is directly east of Cabrini Green. And I got to the opportunity while I was in undergraduate school to spend time every week in social programs and church programs and youth programs that were engaged in some of these urban issues in Cabrini Green. And so I learned a lot in those days about what kinds of things are going on in American cities. And I just got very interested in contributing whatever I could to solving some of these challenges that we have in our cities.
Wow, that sounds like great work. So on an everyday basis, what do you do with the city of Memphis?
Well, Neighborhood Preservation, Inc. was established almost 10 years ago now to deal directly with the issue of vacant and abandoned properties around the city. And so we're frequently partnering with city agencies, as well as nonprofits and county and state agencies to deal with the just very complex challenges of vacant and abandoned property. Sometimes it's a vacant house where an owner has died or where a bank has taken possession and has not done what they're supposed to do with it. Sometimes it's a vacant commercial building where there's not anyone who is taking care of it or operating a business there anymore. And sometimes it would be a vacant lot, and who knows who the owner might be, but a vacant lot that nobody is taking care of. And the thing that I learned in my work in Memphis, from the time that I started getting involved in community development here, that was back in the 90s in the Lemoyne College Community Development Corporation. One of the things I learned in those days was that there are a lot of legal and complicated policy challenges to dealing with vacant property. It's not just empty and abandoned because because it's an easy solution and nobody's trying to fix it. It's like that because there are big legal and system issues. And so Neighborhood Preservation Inc. was formed in 2010 for the purpose of working on those systemic barriers to neighborhood revitalization and finding solutions and working with neighborhood groups and policymakers to bring about a difference and hopefully a revitalization of many neighborhoods that have a lot of abandoned property that nobody's taken care of.
So, Steve, well, let me first share with our listeners that if you're just tuning in, I am talking today to Steve Barlow, the president of the Neighborhood Preservation Inc. And while you were talking about the challenges of this particular area, if people wanted to become more engaged in neighborhood preservation and what those laws are, and if they want to participate and help, who would they need to contact?
Well, there's a couple of ways to get connected. If you want to learn more about NPI and the work that we do, we have a website, which is www.npimemphis.org.
Will you repeat that again and take it a little slower because we got people listening and some of them are my age or older.
Sure. It's www.npimemphis.org.
Thank you. So your board is made up of a variety of thought leaders. Is it hard to recruit citizens to do this work?
Well, everybody sees blighted property in their community and in the city at large as their problem. And so I've found that this is an issue that, there's no pro-blighted property constituency. Everybody understands. Different people with different levels of or depths of understanding, but everybody understands that this isn't right. This is not the way that anybody wants it to be. And so I find that once people begin to understand that's the main thing we're working on, is finding ways of resolving this problem that everybody perceives as their problem, that it's people get excited about some potential solutions to the challenges. And so recently we added some board members to Neighborhood Preservation Inc. and our existing board thought about who would be the ideal candidates to join the board and came up with a list of 5. And I was hoping I'd get most of them, at least half of them. And 5 out of 5 accepted, and we're excited to accept and to join the ranks of the board. Similarly, in neighborhood work that we do, when we go recently, a team from Neighborhood Preservation Inc. went to a meeting over in the MIFA headquarters for the Peabody Vance neighborhood.
Okay.
There's a monthly meeting they call the Participating Jurisdiction Association, where they get together and talk about challenges. And we presented there and talked about all the work we're doing and what we can do to support a neighborhood. And so once people begin to understand what steps they can take, they get real excited about getting involved, in my experience. So I've found it to be a consensus building issue.
Well, we only have a few seconds left in this segment. I'd like for you to hold that thought there, because when we come back, we're going to talk about more about how do we get people in the mind of thinking about neighborhood preservation. So just hold your thought. We'll be right back with more A View from the Chair and my guest, Steve Barlow of Neighborhood Preservation Inc., NPI.
Jazz, America's own original musical art form. When did it start? Who were and are some of the major players? How do you distinguish what kind of jazz you're listening to? We talk about the great and lesser-known artists, songs and tunes, the instruments, and the social impact jazz has had on world culture since its beginning at the start of the 20th century.
Riffin' on jazz on the Kazookian Network. Kazookian!
We're back with more A View from the Chair. And of course, I'm your host, Councilwoman or Council Chair Patrice Jordan Robinson. And my guest today is Steve Barlow, President of the Neighborhood Preservation Inc. And we're talking about a better Memphis. In the last segment, we left off talking about neighborhood preservation and looking at how people participate in the process. So I just have a question that's really on my mind, is that how do we have the same interest in our community and the welfare of our community by neighbors each and every day? When are we seeing attitudes shift? Are we seeing more interest? Are we seeing less interest? What do you see since you're on the grounds and in our communities every day?
The challenges in many neighborhoods in Memphis are immense and overwhelming. I'll never forget the story of a woman I talked to who lived in South Memphis, and she lived on a cove street where more than half of the houses had been torn down, and there was an empty apartment building on the dead end of her street, and there had been dumping for years of mattresses, and people back in and dump stuff.
Oh my!
There were overgrown lots around her house. And, she voiced that frustration that so many people feel. She said, what am I paying my taxes for? Am I paying my taxes to live on a garbage heap? That's the kind of voice and the frustration that kind of drives me to keep on making sure that people are getting. Not only are they getting the support from their surrounding community, but that we get organized, as a community, and I mean organized between and among all of the different necessary partners. And I'm very encouraged in the years that since I've been with Neighborhood Preservation Inc. In the years that I've worked with the city, through the administration, through the council, through the various divisions, worked with the county. I'm very encouraged. I think we're on a trend towards more involvement at the community level. I think there are plenty of organizations, plenty of neighborhood groups that are taking steps. However, it is a really overwhelming challenge, and so people are frustrated and need encouragement. And so that's the kind of thing where a small success can really take you a long way. Little things, little pickups, little cleanups, those things help stimulate people to do more and more and to begin to believe, teaching people that it can be different and to believe that they can have a role in making it different, I think is really what the civic leaders in our community have to focus on.
Okay. Let me ask you something. So what happened in her case? She's in a cove. We've got blighted property. We got people dumping. What were we able to do to help her have some hope?
Well, some of the things that are going on in our community now that could resolve that. One is the city has new environmental inspectors, 14 people who are constantly going around the city for those dumping concerns and for those litter concerns. So in the current world, what could have been deployed in that situation, I mean, that was years ago, but in the current world, that's something that could have been deployed. And the environmental inspectors are trained to identify those, dumping and the put out stuff that goes on the curb and nobody comes back to pick up. They're looking for overgrowth of grass. We have a very coordinated in our community now, a grounds maintenance team during the growing season, and lots are cut a lot more frequently and a lot more. It's not 100%. We still have challenges.
Oh yes, I get those complaints.
You know about that. And we're not perfect. And in part, the reason we're not perfect is because it's so difficult and it's such a big challenge. But we are doing in the years that I've been watching this, and it's been about 20 years now, I have seen a continuous trend towards better and better services, better and better coordination, better and better results for neighbors like this woman who was so frustrated at that time.
Okay. Well, Steve, I appreciate you sharing that today. To have 14 new environmental inspectors, because I have citizens call me each and every day. Why do we have to call in the potholes? Why do we have to call in the vacant property? Why do we have to call in the tires on the curb when we have environmental inspectors on the ground every day, and they should be looking at that. But I want you to share with this audience so they'll know the number of severely blighted properties in our community. And it's no way that 14 people can touch all of those areas. So will you share that with us? Because we need their help.
Sure.
We need the citizens to participate, call in, let us know so that we can share the information where it needs to be shared.
And also, and I'll answer that, but the citizens have to do, what I told you I was doing earlier today. Have to get involved in dealing with whatever you can yourself. I mean, it's just such a big city, and there's so many challenges that we need to all pitch in as much as we can. But I believe the number of parcels in the city is about 280,000 parcels of real estate.
280,000.
That's the total parcels.
Yes.
And so the empty houses, the last time we looked at the data, was somewhere around 12,000. And the empty lots, the last time we looked at the data, was somewhere around 30,000 empty lots.
That's a lot.
And they tend to be concentrated, as you know, in certain neighborhoods where there's been, a period of time of disinvestment and people moving away and things like that. So they tend to be concentrated. And when they're real concentrated, you can spend, as you know, from looking in some of the neighborhoods where the challenge is the most acute, you can have a block where there are 15 vacant lots and 3 abandoned houses, just one block.
That's absolutely correct.
And so it's a big challenge.
So are we asking our neighbors to get the trash up in front of their house, keep their gutters clean, call in and let us know when we have overgrowth if they see it being persistent? Is that what you're trying to share with us today?
Yes, I think everybody has to play their part. Everybody, and I think if you get the opportunity, one of the calls to action that I like to give people is that I want you, if you're living in a neighborhood without blighted property or overgrown lots or litter on your street, volunteer in a community within Memphis that is having that difficulty. It will really help you to understand the scale of this problem. I've stood on the street in front of one of our community gardens. That's one of the things NPI has done, is to get involved in supporting community gardens. I've spent 2 or 3 hours with a shovel just pushing the dirt off of the sidewalk in front of one vacant lot. And I mean, it takes time to do these things, but when you actually put your sweat out there in the community and you're involved,
about some sweat equity here.
Yes, then you begin to feel like this matters to me and this is part of my community, even if I don't live here.
Okay, let's hold that thought and we'll be right back with a view from the chair and my guest, Steve Barlow.
R&R on Sports.
Brother Rashad McCants, welcome to R&R on Sports.
Thanks for having me, brother.
It's R&R on Sports.
We're back with a view from the chair, and I'm your host, Chairwoman Patrice Robinson, and my guest is Steve Barlow. And if you're just tuning in, we're talking about a better Memphis. So, Steve, when blighted property has been consistently cited by the city and there appears to be no improvements, what happens next?
The issue that might be going on is that there could be a process of notifying an owner or owners of the problem. The city, I know, always first makes efforts to notify owners of their right and, of course, of their duty to clean it up. Now, if an owner, after being notified, doesn't clean it up, then the city, through its different departments, has some authority to go ahead and clean it up and to put a bill on the property for the cost of cleaning it up. Now, that would be a situation of dumping or overgrowth of grass or something like that. Sometimes the properties that cause a lot of concern are the empty houses or empty buildings in neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And, for example, a house where there may have been a hoarder situation or something like that. And the process there is that if the owner doesn't respond, it typically is going to be taken to the environmental court. The code enforcement officers tend to want to take any complicated, particularly a vacant structure situation, to the environmental court. And then once it goes to the environmental court, there is a process by which the city could get authorized to go ahead and do some cleanups. There are a lot of times you get results by taking it to court because an owner now finally realizes that they have to do something and they appear in court. The frustrating thing for citizens and for neighbors and for advocates like me is that it takes more time than we wish it would take.
Absolutely. And it's something we've been talking about, and I have been on the council 4 years, is trying to establish a registry so we don't just have an LLC, we have a name and a number where we can call an individual about these properties.
Right. Now, sometimes the information that you can find publicly is information that doesn't really get you to a real person. And so there are cities and states that have found a way to require owners to provide who is responsible for property maintenance at their property, and to provide a registry for that kind of information, which has proven to be quite helpful in a lot of communities.
Okay. Neighborhood Preservation, Inc. has a relationship with the University of Memphis in helping address some of these severe blight problems. Can you talk to us about your working relationship?
Yes, we're working on, over time, establishing a community development law center there. That's my dream. At this point, we have a couple of things. We have a code enforcement academy, which we teach leaders from all around the country once a year how to do strategic code enforcement at the University of Memphis School of Law. We also have a Neighborhood Preservation Act clinic. The law school operates the clinic in partnership with the city, actually. So the City Law Division and the University of Memphis School of Law have the Neighborhood Preservation Act clinic. 6 to 8 law students every semester go to environmental court representing the city to deal with vacant and abandoned property issues. And they learn a lot about the city. They get a lot of results. It's really an exciting program. The NPI was involved in the early days of getting it launched, but at this point, it's simply a partnership between the law school and the city of Memphis.
And I know for a fact those students do a phenomenal job, and that's a great way for them to get experience when they finish law school. So let's shift gears just a little bit and talk to us about who's going to sponsor a 2-day conference in the future, what it's about, what's going on with Neighborhood Preservation, Inc.
Okay. Well, the fourth summit, it's called the Neighborhood Blight Elimination Summit, is going to be May 1st.
Okay.
It's going to be, we're really excited because it's going to be in a building that is empty now, but that has a lot of hope, I think, for reuse. It's the old Northside High School building in the Klondike neighborhood on Valentine.
All the neighbors would really love that to see that school open, even if it's just for the conference.
Yes, it's a 300,000 square foot building. It has a huge 3 full size gyms. It has a big auditorium in there, but we don't even need all that. We're inviting the community to come to the summit. You can learn about the summit at memphisfightsblight.com. That's memphisfightsblight.com.
Thank you.
And you just look at Neighborhood Preservation Summit. It's May 1st, and we are also taking nominations for awards. There's a list of awards.
Oh, talk to us about awards.
Yes.
We like that.
Yes, we'd love to have people nominate for these awards, and you can nominate from that same website, memphisfightsblight.com. There's the Leadership Impact Award for somebody whose leadership has really made a difference in their community for neighborhood preservation and blight elimination. There's the Grassroots Activist of the Year. There's the Residential Property of the Year. This is the residential property that has shown a major turnaround or has really been a beacon of hope for people who see it. The Commercial Property of the Year, maybe one that's had a big drastic turnaround from an eyesore to a beautiful thing. And then there's the Neighborhood Achievement Award for somebody or some neighborhood that has made a lot of progress or done something notable. And so we're taking nominations now. And the summit will be on May 1st at Northside High School on Valentine, and you can register at the link that you'll find at memphisfightsblight.com.
So what is the deadline to submit the award nominations?
The end of March.
The end of now.
So you have about a month.
You got 1 month.
That's right.
And we're in the 4th day of March right now. So I'd like to suggest to the listening audience, you need to go ahead and look at that website and make those awards alive and real.
Yes.
As I can think of some when you talked about
I hope
that
you'll
today.
nominate some.
I will. I just thought about one in particular. Steve, how do our citizens who love to assist you in this work tell us about how they can help you in this nonprofit work?
Well, there are various ways to get involved. We have a community advisory board, which I'm real proud of. If somebody is really interested in learning more and in getting and connecting their community to our work, they could offer to participate there. They could look at the NPIMemphis.org website. All of our news is there and all of our opportunities. We often have trainings and we're willing. One thing they could do is invite us to their church or neighborhood group, and we can teach them all about what's going on in blight elimination in the city.
Now, that's something we all can do, and I'm going to share that in my newsletters.
Please do.
Well, I want to thank you, Steve Barlow, and you are the president of NPI, is that correct? For joining me here on A View from the Chair. And I'll be right back here on Kazukian Network with some parting thoughts.
Thank you.
Please note that the Neighborhood Preservation Summit scheduled for May 1st will be held online, in our virtual format.
Hey, I'm Williams Brack, co-host of Grind Set. The insight you gain from us and our guests will motivate you to take the leap into entrepreneurship, so stay with us. What's your grind set? And if you happen to miss some of our episodes, make sure to check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast provider.
Grind Set on the Kazukian Network.
Your Memphis City Council and the staff that make up our office is working diligently every day to ensure that our city remains at the top of our citizens and visitors' minds when it comes to visiting and making investments in our neighborhoods. So I really, really, really appreciate Steve Barlow with Neighborhood Preservation Incorporated for stopping by today to share with you, our listeners, their work. I'm Chairwoman Patrice Robinson, and I'll see you next time right here on A View from the Chair on the Kazukian Network. A View from the Chair, from the chair, from the chair.
Recorded at Kazukian Studios. Directed, produced, and distributed by Kazukian.